when the answers are unclear, the fruit isn't.
Yeah, absolutely. The fruit is always there.
The fruit is always clear.
We just don't seek it out,
for it.
because also, let me tell you, and I've said this before, I could feel the Lord pushing us in a certain direction, and I was like, I kept bargaining, like Lord, okay, I can feel that this is, but no, Lord, it can't be that. It's not that. Like I was fighting it. Why? Because there's so much wrapped up in everything I've ever known.
It's a lot to let go.
It's a lot.
So this is a little bit different. It's not really behind the scenes. It's more of who's in front of the camera. So it's nice to have Jess here with me. And we're going to discuss a little bit about the background to Faith Story and the heart to Faith Story. And also just really what's on our hearts. So it's our family journey over the last 5 or 6 years that we would like to share with you.
Yeah, our faith story to faith story.
Nice.
You know, not just a heart. And we've had so many conversations where we've bumped in. Hello to everybody. Sorry, I didn't say hello to all of you, and it's very different to be on this side of the camera. But we've bumped into so many people where we've had conversations, I always say in the parking lots or in the shopping malls, and they are so valuable when you can really share face-to-face the heart and the thinking. And Faith Story is unique. It's very different. It's not a church, which we're able to tell people when we see them, because that's the first thing they want to know. For those that have followed us in ministry for many years, they think that we've moved to just start a church. And Faith Story isn't a church. It is a digital tool to help you grow in your personal walk with the Lord. And that's what this conversation is about. It's really bringing everybody into those one-on-one conversations that we've been able to have, where you can just share the heart. And it is very personal, because it's been our journey that has led us to see that there is a gap that we can fill so very quickly with so many other things, where we think that we're really being faithful in our walk, but there's basics that we sometimes really neglect, and that just makes such a difference in your faith journey and in your faith walk and your faith story.
And I think just sort of to just come in there, I think the difference is that this is not somebody or a couple from outside of ministry saying, oh, we think there's a gap. This has been my entire professional life.
Yes.
And it's been your entire life.
Yes, yeah.
In ministry, where we are saying, we know this from the inside. And it's not that it was obvious or that it was easy, like,
that's been our journey, the uncovering and the unfolding.
And that's been what's so beautiful about it.
Yeah.
So maybe we want to go back to, not all the way to the beginning, because this will be really long, but go back to about 2017, 2018.
Yeah. So I think there might be a few people that have started following Faith Story that don't know us. So we have been in ministry, as Warren said, for more than 20 years. Warren's been about 23 years. I've been for about 21 years in ministry, but grew up in ministry. So
that's really lifelong.
Lifelong, yeah. My family very involved in ministry, and the church that we were involved in was my family church. So always been involved and grew up in front of all the people, lots of moms and dads that were always there, seeing all the milestones in my life. It was very, very integral part of my life. Like, church was life. And then obviously we met when you came to study.
And church really became your life.
Church really became my life. Had our
that.
children. They were very involved. We were all very involved. And then in 2017, we took up more of a leadership role in our church. And that was
the transition. So 2017 into 2018.
Yes. Yeah. Obviously, we had been involved in leading youth ministry for many years. I mean, that's what we did for a long time, before our kids, even a little bit into our kids. But this was really the leadership role of the church, and where you almost get to, you feel the responsibility and the weight of leading people, and what is the direction you want to take the church and the people. And so that was 2017, 2018. And I still remember us getting together with our staff and the team of people. And we, you come in and it's all new, and you think, we all need to be working towards the same goals. So let's set some core values. And it was very much on our heart even then that we wanted to make church a very personal journey. We had core values like bringing the family home, where the thinking behind that was, often you find that families are split. They just send their children off to church, or mom goes to church with with the children. Dad stays at home. And we were like bringing the family as a whole unit home, because we know that the faith journey really actually starts not at the church on a Sunday. It starts at home, and that's
not just starts.
Not starts, sorry, it grows.
It starts there.
Yes,
but it's also, that's where the major impact is.
That's where the impact and the influence is. So bringing the family home beyond the four walls, that it wasn't just about a Sunday service, not just a Sunday service. We spoke about built on the rock, but made of glass, meaning that transparency, allowing ourselves to be a little bit more vulnerable in ministry. And those were all things that were really at our heart. And obviously that had been part of us growing into where we were at that stage. And then it was busy. We had 3 kids.
2019
we had three kids. 2019, we had 3 kids under 5. So 2017, 2018, 2019, that was our early years. 3 girls under 5 years old, very busy. And our church activity life was jam-packed. But that was our life.
Well,
that's what we knew. It wasn't like we stepped into a role where everything got busy.
It was a combination of everything.
It was a combination.
Children.
Yeah, I think because that season was also super
personal.
Busy. Very
so
much.
it's we had layers and layers of. It was just really busy.
Wow, it was busy. Every night of the week there was counselling and home groups, and still involved in the youth at some points. And you had multiple weddings on the weekends, multiple services, christenings. It was a very busy time, and we leapt into the opportunity, and we were super excited. Obviously, you hit your few little things along the way where you're not sure and you're unsure, but you lean on the people around you. And then COVID hit hard. I still remember the end of 2019. I would say that we really felt like there had been some momentum that had been created. And 2020 was this big rah-rah start to the year. And then all of a sudden, nothing has ever happened like that in the history of mankind, where
you couldn't be prepared for it. There was no ways.
There was no preparation to go, this has been the output. It's been super external focused. You've been taking care of people. You've been encouraging people. You've been involved just really in ministry, very outward.
So Jess, we've said this all along, and it's been proven true time and time again. So COVID was a revealer and an accelerator. What did it reveal, do you feel, about our situation?
With everything just going to a complete standstill. So what happened in that time, we had to learn some quick new skills. We didn't have the production team that we normally had around us. So fortunately, our church had been live streaming before that. So
we had the equipment.
We had the equipment. We had everything. And also our people, a lot of our people were used to sometimes watching online, even pre-COVID, because the live stream was available. So it was, at that point, it never scared us. We were just like, all right, cool, online for a few weeks and it's going to be cool. Okay, where do I switch on the camera? What are these lights supposed to look like?
Those are skills that you had to learn.
Yes, because I was recording you in our little lounge at home, and we were waking up early, like 5 a.m. before the girls would wake up, so that we could have some quiet to do our recordings, making sure that you look awake enough. And we learned those skills, but personally, and that's why Faith Story is such a personal journey, because personally it just hit us hard that we hadn't been present in our personal lives much. And
when you say personal lives, I mean, that obviously extends to the children.
We were fortunate in that we were working together all the time. So again, our communication is good. We've always had that to our relationship, which is a massive advantage. So we were together a lot of the time, but our children, we weren't around a lot of the time because we were busy, and we honestly you think, Lord, I'm being faithful in this journey. And I remember
you're doing a good thing.
You think the whole time you think it's so God honoring. And we hear this all the time about your family's important and investing in your family first. And that's the irony, I suppose, of us trying to bring the family home.
We came up with those core values.
Core values.
Take.
And didn't we find that in COVID, that those core values just all fitted so amazingly into COVID?
It was like the divine.
One of them was share my church, and I just remember that just became digital. Like now, we're no longer sharing at church, we're sharing it all over with the share button.
Yeah.
And so it brought our family home and home to the right place, where we realized maybe we've been putting a lot of focus outward, but personally, there's some gaps here that we're missing in our personal journey with the Lord, in our one-on-one time with the Lord, in the one-on-one time with our family. And it was the most beautiful experience, because literally we got to say, wow, we could see it from a very different perspective. And we got to say, what are we going back to? Is it just going to be we're jumping back into where we left off and we're going to pick up the momentum as fast as we can? And it made us realize that, like, we need to really put effort into our relationship with the Lord, first and foremost, on a personal level, which obviously we were doing, but it was busy. And this just brought a stillness, which was very different.
I think the stillness, what you touched on there, was really good.
Yeah.
Because if I say just my personal journey, probably started in 2018, where I became a lot more conscious of the responsibility.
Yes, this minute that weight was there.
Yeah. And because of that responsibility, I had a choice of how am I going to be a good steward of this. And so I started a different journey from 2018.
You changed all of your personal habits.
My routines and all of that kind of stuff.
It was a big change.
So by the time we got to 2020, I'm so thankful that I had like 2 years worth of practicing and preparing, so that getting up early in the morning, it wasn't a problem in 2020.
I was struggling, but you were fine.
No, well, I was the one that had to be awake in front of the camera. Weren't there some times where you were in your gown?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, like most of the time, definitely.
Yeah. I mean, that's just funny. Eh?
Yeah.
So, and I wanted to just interject there,
please,
because it's you have to see the Lord's timeline. We're highlighting a specific event, okay, so COVID 2020 and the change. But no, it's years worth of prep before that.
100%.
Even now, we're sitting at the end of 2023 and we are still learning lessons.
Yes.
Like massive lessons.
Absolutely.
That we look back and we say, but you could have learned a lesson in 2020. And you're like, okay, but these things take time.
They really
It's
do.
just it's the nature of deep change that it takes time.
And COVID, coming back to the fact that you said it was an accelerator. Before we went into COVID, even though we had said we really want to make it a lot more personal and family focused, like we were very much about trying to bring younger families and get families walking with the Lord. While their kids are little, like really, because that's where it starts, growing your family in the Lord. But we were still unsure, and we were praying to the Lord for that clarity. Like, Lord, we project 10 years from now into our ministry. What does that look like? Like, generationally, we are facing this massive shift, and we can feel the weight of that shift. And Lord, what does that look like for the church? How do we... how can we be good stewards, like you say? And you do. The weight of that leadership role is, how do you change people's thinking from what they've always known to almost be able to shift to say, generationally, our children, what does it look like when they're taking their families to church?
What does church look like?
What does church, and what does their faith look like? And we felt this weight and we weren't sure. And then, like you said, COVID was just like, the Lord was like, let me remove everything off your plate. You now have a clean slate. You have a fresh start. You have the stillness that you needed to have clarity. And we were just like, whatever we put back on now, we need to make sure we've got the right teams. We need to make sure that this is sustainable. We need to make sure that we not end up being super, super busy where we can't,
you know what it was, Jess?
yeah,
It was literally, can we please just learn the lesson
very much
that COVID has made available? Because this is once in a lifetime.
Once in a
kind of
lifetime.
stuff.
Take advantage of
So
it.
you might not have seen it fully, but with that stillness, you now realize, whoa, why were we so busy? Why were we doing all of this?
Yeah.
But we weren't prioritizing
the
our
basics.
primary
Yeah.
responsibility
Yeah.
in our own family. Because how were you going to do that?
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
No,
Like,
yeah.
I've tried. I've played it through. It's like, what was the other option?
Yeah.
To walk in and say, no.
Yeah, no, that wasn't an option.
Not doing this, not doing this,
But
not
that
doing
clarity
like,
we would have never had in the moment at all, outside of stopping.
So let's
fast forward. Yeah.
Let's now get to, because that is
I would say
the base of where Faith Story, and another important thing, just we have to bring this in, okay? Yes, it's about the personal faith. Yes, it's about prioritizing what is important, but it was about reaching out from the church instead of drawing people to the church and then creating comforts. And it was, how do we get to the unchurched?
And I wanted to say that because besides the unchurched, which was very much on our hearts, we were thinking, how can we remove barriers?
Yeah.
It was a very real factor that people that loved church were very afraid to come back.
Yes.
So COVID wasn't a 21-day lockdown. It wasn't a 5-week lockdown. The
effects of it
sustained for the whole of 2020. By the end of 2020, we were still coming in and out of stage 2, stage 3, stage 1. Exactly. So we were at that stage thinking, even if there are a few people, there were people pressing, like, we want to come back. But there were a lot that said, I'm not comfortable to come back.
Yeah.
So that also made us think very much about how do we navigate this? Because people, what we did see in that time is people started to feel a bit lost without church. And that's maybe where we can segue into the gap. I don't know if there's anything you wanted to bring in that you were fast tracking to, so I don't want to pull you in another direction.
No, I think that's good.
Yeah.
I think if we get to the gap, because what we're really looking at is the lessons that COVID taught, and how that sort of morphed and transformed thinking in ministry, and what it highlighted to us. Yeah. So it's what we got to see from the inside.
The advantage we had coming back was that we weren't coming back to this massive congregation. We literally came back to maybe 70 people at first, on those first few weeks. And then that built to maybe between 70 and 150 for at least a year and a half.
Remember,
and we were just like,
just remember there were restrictions. You could only have 100 people.
Exactly, that's true. Yeah, there was still, that's crazy.
Yeah.
You forget these things.
Yeah.
But then we were like, well, we've had this personal, we want to make it personal. Now we literally, let's use this to our advantage. Our new members intake, let's make this super personal. And this is where I wanted to bring in Faith Story. Because I would say that maybe was the first point where we hadn't ever spoken about a digital ministry called Faith Story. I mean, that's literally developed now in the last year, 2023. However, one of our very first steps, if you wanted to join the church and come into membership in our new personal setting, was you shared your faith story with the new attendee and you asked them to share their faith story back. And
it's beautiful.
Just talking about it makes me emotional because just a complete stranger, you shared just that little bit of vulnerability. This is what I experienced in my journey. At this point in my life, I had doubts. At this point in my life, I was hurt. At this point in my life, I was uncertain. And they come back. And because you've given little, they feel comfortable enough to share. And obviously it was all very confidential, but they were able to share with you. And then we had a one-on-one meet. And it's almost like you walk into this one-on-one meet with a stranger and you feel like you know them because there is just this beauty in sharing from a vulnerable place. And like we can be in relationships with people for 5, 6, 8, 10 years and never ever get to that level of conversation where there's vulnerability. And that made us go, there is such a connection between our faith journey and being able to express our brokenness as human beings, where we were possibly feeling like within the church setting, it seemed like that was so distant. There was a gap There was a gap where people come and you've almost, that's why people feel, you come in and you feel, oh, I'm out of place because these people seem to have it all together. That's how, you've often heard people say that about church.
And in a public setting, it's
obviously,
going to be like
100%. But majority of church is the Sunday event.
Yes.
And the first thing that you do when you join a church is obviously get involved, and you join all the different teams to meet people and to fellowship and all of those types of things. But sometimes there's this gap, which is the part where the Lord really wants to know your heart, where there needs to be transparency, where there needs to be vulnerability, not with anybody else, with Him first, where He almost needs, you need to go to the place where you're like, Lord, I'm at this point in my life. I know that I'm seeking out a purpose and I'm seeking out fulfillment, and I need you to show me. I need to fill myself with you first before I fill myself with activity and with fellowship and with things that we feel we're being faithful and we're doing the right thing. But sometimes we can become, if I can put it like this, I think for a lot of people, church is their faith. And church has replaced their personal journey and walk with the Lord. And that
is the risk. That is the danger.
That is the danger. And for us, it's been, church is just the most beautiful place where you gather with fellow believers, where you raise your children in the ways of the Lord. But
it can't
replace this gap. And
that needs to be personal.
There is a gap, and we saw the gap. And we said, there's this gap that we want to fill. And that is what we went on this journey. I remember a lot of your sermons, people would come back and say, like, wow, it is super practical, but it feels like I feel challenged, personally, very challenged. And it feels like a therapy session. Like, it feels like Warren just knew what I was going through, and he has unpacked these layers of things that I wasn't even thinking about, I was ignoring. And you were doing that from a public platform. And the more you did that, and obviously the more we were developing on the journey, everything that we were speaking about publicly was what we were going through personally. And I mean, now often I can go back and I can look at those messages, and you can remember those points of growth in your time where it's breaking down identities. Like there's been this identity around the activity and around the all the things that you do at church.
How did that play out with your identity? How
much time do we have for that, Johnson?
Well, just give us snippets.
If you can think about, obviously, if, like, for most people, they have known a lot of other roles in their life and their Christian walk is just one. For me, everything has always been one. So my family, my life, my church, my faith, my ministry, my ministry, yes, the school, being all in one place. So if you want to talk identity, you don't get more of an identity around the church and the position that I held and the public platform of ministering to people. That is all I've ever known. So that was a definite identity, which I was very proud to have as an identity. If you want to open that up,
did you see that as an identity? Did you realize that was your identity?
I think I did, but not to the deep layers that I've realized now. This is obviously the part where it is very personal, that this year, leaving all that we've ever known and stepping out into an isolation where you are able to do ministry, but it's not public. You put it out and there's not an instant feedback. There's not an instant affirmation that you're on the right path. There's not an instant affirmation that it's effective. If you've been surrounded...
Even outside of that, Jess, it's not on the same platform.
Oh, 100% not the same platform.
And that's the big difference.
Yes, it's not people that know you, and they have known you. Yes. And I never ever once had to doubt my motive, because I genuinely have an energy for people. I'm energized by people. Ministry is at my heart. I'm an encourager by nature, so I love to see people encouraged. And
the people you were surrounded with responded to that.
And they knew my heart.
They knew that because it was the position that you had.
100%.
Remove yourself from that.
So
and now,
yeah, we are fast forwarding now to now, but it fits in perfectly where you don't have any of that. I come with the same level of energy that I'm used to, and people just look at me and like, bye, gone.
Yeah.
Don't know you, don't know what you stand for. And for the first time, it was like, as I said to you, I'm like, I've never had to really work for that connection with people in my life. And then you start to go, wow, so there is an identity. You have been seeking an affirmation, maybe not necessarily just from the Lord, like you have been seeking it from people. Now you really start to uncover the layers of, okay, so ministry, if I don't have the platform that I've always had, ministry, how do we connect? What is it? And all that does is it drives home those things that we've been building on. You've got to, you either go, okay, I truly am holding on to this truly is at my heart, I truly am convicted about sharing this with people, or
now that I'm not getting all of the external stuff,
maybe it's
now
not.
what?
And I can praise the Lord and thank the Lord that it's been the hardest work to unpack all of those layers, and it's been hard to leave a ministry like what we've left, where all of the people are your family. It's not just literally your family. Everybody for me has been like a family. But I believe the Lord's brought us into this season. Firstly, what he's doing in this year, I feel like he's just cementing down. He's like, okay, you say that this is what's at your heart. You say that you want it to be personal. You say that you want this for everybody else. Are you sure? Because I'm going to make you do the work. And
now we're going to get to this.
Which is beautiful. Yeah, absolutely beautiful.
So in the journey,
yeah,
whilst we are having to answer questions, and
maybe
maybe also important to say that life doesn't happen in isolation. So
unless you're in COVID.
Well, even then, there are parallels to the story. So it's not just the ministry side from our side. There were organizational things that were happening and changes that run parallel. And which comes first and which influences?
And those were things that were growing us as quickly. So you're growing quickly in your personal walk and you're asking the Lord for answers and clarity. Then this is happening in the organization, in your family life.
And those are all intertwined
and the Lord just uses all of that.
But you can't see
there's
it
a pressure here, and then there's something here that you've got to deal with. And then once you've dealt with that, you think, okay, we've overcome this hurdle, so let's move into the next thing.
So we are jumping around, but that's fine.
Yeah.
Because in all of that, there was something that we did that we're very thankful that we did. What was that?
Look for the fruits.
Look for fruits?
Yeah.
But how you have to wait.
Oh, yeah. The waiting comes before before the fruits. Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah.
So and that was one of the most difficult things is when you are under all of these pressures and you see all of those things, it's the human natural response to just want to make a decision, move, don't be uncomfortable.
Yeah, what's the quickest way we can get a result? And we did. But COVID taught us that. And that's what we learned in that COVID year of waiting on the Lord for the right timing. And we were because we were so sure that we didn't just want to throw a whole bunch of things back on the table and be weighed down again. We learned to wait. And that's what happened in 2021, 2022. We were coming to brick walls and there were challenges and we didn't know. We were like, Lord, we don't know what this is supposed to be. And eventually...
Do you know what it is?
Before I take it to the eventually.
Yeah. Do you know what it is? If you fix the problem, you patch, you're never going to get to the real problems that are underneath. And that's what waiting allows.
Oh, and that's what faith story we want to try and encourage people to do.
Exactly. And you know what it is, Jess? You don't have to wait forever. I mean, obviously not, because there comes a point where it is so clear that you don't wait anymore. So how deep does it go? Well, you don't know, but just give it time until, okay, I don't need to.
Yeah.
So sorry,
there's a peace and contentment when you get to that final layer, and you know, okay, Lord, that needed to be dealt with before I could move forward.
Beautiful thing.
Yeah, absolutely.
Is waiting on the Lord when you are under pressure like that.
Yeah. Before we go into the verse, because I think that is the crux of faith story. There were multiple affirmations along the way. So while you're trying to seek clarity, there are things like seeing people like doctors and prison wardens that you had direct contact with. Those people are ministering in a way that is just, people wouldn't even see it as ministry looking at it. But we would come into contact with these people, doctors that were sharing the hope and the comfort of our life beyond this world. And then prison wardens that are spending their Saturdays, they're working shifts over the weekends. Really,
specifically
they are
Sundays.
called correctional officers because that's what they spend their life doing. They are correcting and guiding, and they're not just there like we just see them as like guards on duty. It's not. They are working.
That they're making.
They're working
Obviously,
in programs.
We've got personal,
yes,
insight.
And those were personal journeys we were walking at the same time, where the Lord was uncovering these affirmations, and you come into contact with those people, and a lot of them, the first thing they say, Warren, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry I couldn't be in church. I'm working shifts and I'm doing this. And you just want people to know, like, that guilt needs to be removed, because it's not about that. It's about the gap.
It's about your relationship
with the Lord. He's not going, oh, you didn't tick the box of going and sitting in church on a Sunday because you were working a shift. You don't have to carry that guilt. You don't have to carry that weight. And we were just going, what is there for those people to firstly have the guilt removed? Secondly, who is filling their tank and their well, because they are giving of their resources. They are giving emotionally, so much emotionally. I mean, more than just standing up and giving an encouraging message. This is like, you are walking deep, dark roads with people. And unless you are willing to work in yourself and deal with multiple layers, how are you supposed to be an effective resource when it comes to really, really heavy things? And I mean, that I feel is the purpose that people are seeking. They feel I can help and I can share, but only to a point. Like, I don't know, I don't have answers. And then they're like, okay, the church has to give those answers. It's the same as parenting. Parenting.
You know what it is, Jess? These are all gaps.
They're gaps.
So it's the gap of joining a church, becoming busy, not doing the deep work. It's the gap of those who can't attend for whatever reason. Yes. And then, like you're saying with parenting, it's the gap.
Parenting, I bump into people all the time, and they, I haven't been at church for the last 10 years, but I have to come now because I've got my child. They need to know about church. The church needs to help me because they must know about church. And I'm like, they must know. Church is a lovely place to bring them to see other children worshiping the Lord together, to build community, and to really get into relationships with like-minded people that you can share. But they don't need to know about church. They need to know about the Lord. They need to know about the Lord in their life. They need to know about the Lord in your life as parents. They need to know that every single day when they are facing anxiety or fear, that you are bringing them back to the Word, to the Lord as parents. You don't need the answers there. You have them.
It's a support. It's an add-on.
It's an add-on.
It's never, ever going to be the same. But
people feel, I don't have those answers. I'm ill-equipped. I need to take my children there. And it's not wrong. But if this gap was filled, how much more equipped would they feel? And one thing that I've learned in this entire time is one of the best things I feel that I've given my children in this time, from when there was stillness, is that I don't have all the answers. And I tell my children that now. If they come to me and they want timing on a certain thing, and I say, we don't have those answers now. We have to allow the Lord to show us. We have to wait. We have to be patient and know that He is unchanging. He's got this. He knows what's happening in 10 years from now. And for me to give them that, I can't even begin to imagine the example that sets for their faith journey.
Well, it's because it's not an isolated incident, just because you're going to have to walk into the next day with them, into the next week with them, into the next month.
And I'm like, how much more impacting is that than 1 hour on a Sunday?
So let me explain. I want to add this to this. There is the lessons, okay? So this is major lessons for me, was COVID, and then organizationally was understanding the relationship between authority and responsibility. So I'm going to use that in the parenting.
Sure, so good.
So I'm going to take my child to church because I want them to learn about the Lord, which really is I'm shifting the responsibility to the church, and I'm making you feel as the church, it's your responsibility to teach my child about the Lord.
That happens with the adults as well. We come to church for that.
No, absolutely. Okay. Which we'll get to. But here's the thing. So do I have the authority that comes with that responsibility?
Yeah. Do I get to come home with you and watch how you discipline?
Do I get to discipline your child and tell you exactly what needs to? I don't. So you want to give me the responsibility, not the authority. And then it's the same with the individual. So the individual wants to come and say, my personal growth and relationship with the Lord is your responsibility.
How can you encourage me to get through this week?
That's it. And I'm saying, that's fine, but then does the church get the authority?
Yeah.
And is that what you want? You
definitely don't want that. Yeah.
So it's an unfair exchange.
Yeah.
And that was one of the biggest shifts for me, was understanding that it's possible that the organization can create an expectation that can't be fulfilled.
Yeah.
Where we're willing, and that was me, Jess, and that was you for how long?
Yeah.
I'm willing to take on the responsibility. I'll take it on. But then you take on too much and you realize you don't have the authority because you're not going to go there, and it's just not
the work's
healthy.
not going to be done. And what happens is, if this gap is not in main focus to all of us, whether you are in ministry, whether you're a volunteer, whether you're leading from the platform, whether you are just sitting listening to the service each Sunday, if that gap is not the priority, where you are allowing that work to happen in you, and you are broaching things that you know need work, you can jump in, and there can be place for quick offense. There can be place for quick pointing of fingers of, this is not done, and I prefer this person, and I don't like that person, and this person treated me badly, and this person spoke this about me, and all of those things that, again, unfortunately come with people. But we were just kept getting pulled back to bringing people to the gap. So there was the gap of people that needed their resources.
This is the heart of Faith Story, is filling the gap. That's what we're getting to here.
That is the heart.
Okay.
People that needed their resources filled, that weren't able to be in church on a Sunday, was a massive one.
Yes.
Then obviously people that were hurt. There were some people that they've been hurt by church, and they have to get to the point where it's now no longer a blame of the church, but rather, what can I do differently in my walk? What are the layers that I need to unpack? What is the gap that I need to focus on, so that I can start thinking healthily again about community and about fellowship and about all of those things. And
what happens with your relationship with the Lord in that?
Sure.
Even though you're hurt.
Yeah, no, what's tough is you first have to go through the blaming. And that's the tough part, where and a lot of people, I feel they don't get past that step. They're just happy to say that was a bad time in my life. I'm never doing church again. It's just hypocrites, and it's just all these people.
But lots of
there are so many reasons, and again, it's not that they're not valid. There are plenty valid reasons, because the church, again, is not a replacement for faith. The church is made up of sinners, people leading that are human. They are going to disappoint you. The only person that is unchanging and is not going to disappoint you is the Lord. And that needs to be the focus.
You can say that. Until you feel it, it's very different.
Well, because you go and you put this expectation on others around you, and you call yourself a Christian, and you are the leader, and this is how you should respond to me, and all of those types of things. So that was a big one. And then searching. And that's where, so it was the growing, it was the hurting, and then the searching, which comes back to what you mentioned earlier about the unchurched. And we specifically would have Sundays where we would have like a reach, where we just removed things like singing. Because if you're unchurched, singing is weird and awkward. Yeah. We removed things
unless you're at a concert that you paid and you bought a ticket for because you know the songs.
Yes.
Where would you go to a place where
and we're not saying it's bad, but we're just saying where is that there's a little gap that we can fill, where there are barriers that can be removed, man-made traditions and barriers in church that can be removed, where people feel a little bit more open to being able to receive the message that's been given. And that was very much on our heart, which, again, something like a digital ministry then becomes you've removed all of those barriers. You're able to still hear the message. You're able to reflect on your own on some of the questions. You're challenged in a way that you wouldn't necessarily be able to be challenged as personally in a public setting. And that's why for the searching, we're just there to prompt, to ask the right questions, to give you some little seeds that can possibly grow in the Lord's timing. He gives the increase on those. And those were the three major aspects that were on our heart.
Yeah.
But we'll come to the verse now.
Let's get to the verse.
Yeah.
Okay,
where at the end of 2022, we were facing a lot of choices and challenges, and really the weight of what the Lord has for our future. We had no idea. It was extremely uncertain. And we had to ask questions like, why are we in ministry? What is it that we're giving our time and our lives for? What is it that we are making certain sacrifices for? And you were like, we're going to ask this question layer by layer until we get to the bottom of it, like what we were saying, uncovering those final layers. And we were reading this verse.
Well, look, let's just pause there quickly.
This was the day that this verse did come alive. Yeah.
That's not an easy thing.
Yeah,
it's frustrating.
Yeah, and we're telling this in super fast forward. I mean, the work that was happening was...
You don't want to ask the same question, especially when it is uncomfortable and you feel like, but we've asked it, we've worked through it, we've discussed it. Why do we have to ask it again?
Because we were also at a crossroads.
I would still say we have to ask it again. So, and you have to take yourself into that moment, of really we've got to go into that unknown and unsure and uncomfortable for something we've already discussed 3 times. But that's how it works.
I think it was when we got to the point where there was something that hit deep
and you
in
can't
the soul.
ask it again.
And you can't ask again.
Yes.
And it was like, boom.
Yeah.
It was a boom moment of that is it.
Yeah.
And obviously, by the time we had got to this verse, this was days of asking and unpacking layers.
And then this was such a beautiful affirmation of a verse that we know, a passage that we're very familiar with.
So well.
But then when you read it, and that's what I love about where the scriptures come alive, it's because it's living in your moments. So it's the same verse. Yeah. So Ephesians 2, well, the very famous is 8 and 9.
Yeah.
So for by grace you are saved through faith, that not of yourselves is the gift of God, not of works lest anyone should boast. That's 8 and 9. Beautiful
Massive,
verse, foundational. And then verse 10, for we are his workmanship, created in Christ Jesus for good works, which God prepared beforehand that we should walk in them. So explain the sort of the aha moment of reading that verse.
After all of the layers that we had been unpacking and learning to wait and learning patience and learning to move where there was fruit.
Yes.
Because we touched on that briefly, but when you're having to make massive decisions and really and allowing the Lord to lead you, you have to find those little nuggets that you can hold on to. And you had said, just where there's fruit, go where there's fruit. Is our family growing? Is your relationship with the Lord growing?
When you push in this direction.
When you push in this direction. Is this pushing towards the things that you value the most? Is this pulling away from those things? Is this draining you and leaving you feeling dry and empty and snapped and like you've come to this place where there's just no more you can give on it, like where there's just no answers? Or do you feel like you're making progress? Is there fruit in this area?
Can I want to mention, sorry, I don't want to lose your train of thought there, but if I can just mention, when the answers are unclear, the fruit isn't.
Yeah, absolutely. The fruit is always there.
The fruit is always clear.
We just don't seek it out because also, let me tell you, and I've said this before, I could feel the Lord pushing us in a certain direction, and I was like, I kept bargaining, like Lord, okay, I can feel that this is, but no, Lord, it can't be that. It's not that. I was fighting it. Why? Because there's so much wrapped up in everything I've ever known.
It's a lot to let go.
It's a lot. And you had done that. You had been doing a lot of that work. I always say, you were a little bit ahead in the journey of me, but I thank the Lord for that, because when it came time for me to really us start unpacking these layers together, when it came time, you were strong enough to be able to provide that clarity, because for me it was also a lot more in depth and personal. It really was.
It's a different journey.
Yeah, a very different journey. So with that being said, we read, for we are his workmanship created in Christ Jesus. And in that moment, I think about it and I'm thinking, wow, 2018, 2019, 2020, right up until now, we are his workmanship. I've just been like, we workers, we've got to share, we've got to be ambassadors, we representatives, it's go, go, go. We are
outward.
We are here. The Lord's using you as his worker.
Yeah.
And then you go and you like, you do know this, but when you read that, it brushes over and you allow yourself to be busy. And when I realized that his workmanship means we are his piece of work, we are his art piece, we are the pot, he is the potter, and we are his workmanship. And I have this little thing where I picture the clay in the wheel and it's shaking and it's wobbling, and the more you fight it, the more the potter's hands are like, you have to shake around it, but he's got you there.
Yeah.
And I had that, and I'm like, I felt like this is what the Lord's been doing. He's been working in us. This is his work. No amount of us trying to fight back the decisions. Lord, we've waited. You've showed us. You're showing us something. You haven't given us all the answers. This is trust and faith like we've never, ever practiced in our entire lives. But we know you're working. I know the fruits are there, and it's because I could feel that molding process. And what does that molding process look like? It looks broken. Like, let's just say that. Like, there was brokenness because it was letting go. It was surrender. It was massive work that was being done personally in us. And also, you know that the Lord is doing this. And the fact that we were asking these questions, you're like, Lord, get us to the answer. If this is not what we're supposed to be doing, if ministry is not what we're supposed to be doing, if this is not where you want us, you will get us to that answer. But all it did when we read this and we got to those layers was cemented more and more how that work is so beautiful, but it's so overlooked. It's so overlooked in the Christian faith. We almost use faith as an escape. And faith is actually there. Our faith is to shine light on that work that needs to be done. Like, that's where the Lord wants to work in your life.
So even at that point, okay, where we've taken massive steps, okay, physically, I'm talking.
Yeah,
you've physically left, okay?
Yeah, left all you've known.
It still takes time for you to be able to get to that point where you allow the light to shine on those areas and you are willing to look at it.
It's revealed more. So when we read this verse, we were still in the midst of making the decisions to what should we do? What does the future hold?
Yeah.
And when I realized and you realized and we spoke about that workmanship and we pinpointed it, we're like, that's the work we've been doing. We've surrendered, we've waited, we've been still
in us.
The Lord is working in us, and we can see these massive fruits. And there's this peace and contentment that even though we have no idea what the future holds, there's so much uncertainty.
The biggest decisions of our lives. With our 3 children.
Thank the Lord that the fruits were so clear.
Yeah.
And that's what we held on to. And then there was this peace and contentment, and we said, if there's any ministry we want to do, it's to shine light onto that work.
Yes.
You all need to be in the potter's wheel, and we all need to be doing this.
Well, it's like, you know what it is, Jess? It's not, no one can put you in that, but you can very easily take yourself out of it and ignore it.
We do. Of course we do. We're human. We seek out comfort. That's what we seek out. We never want to be uncomfortable.
And really, if we had to say that Faith's story is, we're not saying it's doom and gloom and brokenness and terrible, that's what this is about.
The rewards.
But what we are saying is we're not going to ignore that.
No.
By filling it with a whole lot of other things and by facilitating not doing that work. And even that, I mean, that sounds great in theory.
Yeah.
It's
not
really
easy
not
because
easy.
you have to address things that you have, without even realizing it, you have allowed them to become numb. You've pushed them aside. You haven't thought about things like the way I parent is the way I was parented. What affirmations am I seeking from there that I'm now putting on my own children? And I'm just using those as basic examples.
Yeah.
We don't actually do that in a work. Why? Because we're busy. We have filled our lives with so much
good things.
They're good things.
That's the story.
They really are. And again, the motive and intention is always pure.
Yeah.
I think back to 2020, the motive and intention was, this is faithful. I'm leading my family. I'm doing this for my family. I'm doing this for the Lord. We do that, but then there are massive areas that he just wants you to stop and be still and listen and allow him to show you that if there's work done in this area, it's going to be hard work. But the fruits for your family, your immediate circles, the people around you are going to be unimaginable. And that's where the faith story happens. It doesn't happen at an event. It happens in your home every hour of every day. How are you leading your family? How are you leading your family out of the door in the morning?
Yeah.
Like the basics. And
let's help you with that work.
And even though we can't do the work for you,
no.
When we say journey with us, when we say grow with us, that's what this chat is about. It's showing you that the work is happening in us too, and we are coming and we're saying...
No, I'm going to push back.
Yeah.
It's not that the work is happening in us too. It's that the work is happening in us first.
100%. Before we can prompt.
Yes.
Yeah. We're not going to prompt on things that we haven't gone through.
No.
There's a very real heart behind Faith Story, and it's our hearts. And it's not to make it about us. It's not our ministry, because it's not that kind of ministry.
Yeah.
It's just saying we want to share this, because the same way you shared your faith story with a stranger, they shared back to you. There was this instant connection of, I feel like I know you and I'm here to support you. And this is Christian fellowship, because we are now speaking about things that really matter. These are things that are really deep. These are hurts that you faced. I can say, I'm really sorry that you had to face that loss. And I'm like, isn't that what the Lord really wants in our Christian community and fellowship? Like, I know that I've had conversations in the parking lots and the shopping malls with people that I would call more Christian fellowship than I ever had in like a church event setting where people go, I go for fellowship. Like, yes, it's fellowship and it's wonderful to have a cup of coffee with like-minded people. And there is this beauty in a church setting of people coming together for the Lord.
Your focus has completely changed, Jess.
So
you are not looking to the church and the event for fellowship.
100%.
So you are saying, but hang on, I can have genuine, meaningful Christian fellowship, which surpasses what I've had in the past at the events, outside of all of that. And look at the possibilities of that.
Yeah.
How many of those conversations can you have? How many can others have, if that's the focus?
Well, it's just, I would just say that the depth and the meaning behind it, where you also... It's amazing. You just give out a tiny little bit of something vulnerable. But
sometimes it doesn't come back. Eh?
No, it doesn't always.
And you also have to be prepared for that.
No, 100%. And then it's not the right time.
Yeah.
It's not the right time.
It's not a rejection.
It's not at all. It's not a rejection on the connection.
No.
But workmanship, we said, that is what drives us. We want to shine light there. And I feel Faith Story is in its early stages.
Yeah, it's still very early.
Firstly, we're just trying to get people to get their head around the fact that it's not a church.
Yeah.
Are we missing church and community and fellowship? 100%. We are. It's not, we're saying that this is not to replace that.
No.
This is an add-on, and it's almost viewing our Christian faith from a very different perspective, where we have to be intentional and shine a light on that personal journey. No person, no place is going to fill the gap that's needed and give you the purpose that is going to be found in
your personal walk
and allowing him to really break down a lot of the barriers that we've built up for ourselves.
So just, it's not a replacement.
Yeah.
So Faith Story it's not in competition with church. It's an add-on. But for some, it is
the
only.
Yeah, because it's an only
and
option.
That's the reality.
Yeah. And that's the beauty of it. Wherever it fits for you, it can be used.
Yes.
If you want to grow in your personal journey with the Lord, Faith Story is for you. That's it. If
Just
you
take up the
don't,
challenge.
and you're very happy for those things to stay there,
then that's
then
also
it's not
okay.
for you. And we're also saying it's not something you can push, because it is hard work.
Yeah,
It's not
definitely
fun.
not going to be for everybody.
It's effort, but the rewards of it are.
And
out of this
let me
world.
just touch there quickly. When you say it's effort and it's hard work, and that's not to say that those who don't want to do it are shying away from the effort or the hard work.
No,
It's the
everyone has their own
reality of
story.
life that sometimes you are not in a season where you can do that work. So it's like, should you be exercising? And you say, yes, you should. Okay, so what exercise should you be doing?
Yeah.
You should be running every day.
Yeah.
Well, say that to the guy who's in the hospital who you can't
Ask
right
me,
now.
Justine, would you have done this work as his workmanship and allowed him to mold you and break you in 2012, 2013, 2014? Sorry, I wasn't ready. I wasn't there. I wasn't in that place. I was busy working.
Yeah.
I couldn't see it. And the Lord was like, that's fine. Keep going. I'm watching. I'm waiting.
I'll send COVID.
Yeah, I'm still doing this. You just don't know about it.
Yeah.
And that's why it is. It is the Lord's work, 100%. And that's why all we're there to do is to plant the seeds and allow Him to grow them at the right time.
And to do it together.
That is a massive thing, is just really bringing it home. Like, if families can be sharing in this journey together, like for me and you, the layers that we've got to just personally in our relationship, is just, you would think after a long time, oh, I know so much about you. As I learn about myself, you learn those things about me, and vice versa.
Yeah.
And all it can do is lay a stronger, godly foundation for your marriage and then your parenting.
Well, Jess,
and
it also keeps it fresh and exciting.
100%.
That's one of the most beautiful parts.
Yeah.
It's like we've been married almost 18 years, known each other for 20, but we're still learning and growing. And I mean, that's the most beautiful thing. Yeah. It's not easy. I'm not saying it's
easy, but
it's easiest.
But I think that's what they say, is that as long as that growth is together, and that's what we're trying to create. And again, it's been so encouraging to see people saying, we sit and we do these questions together. Thank you. We've discovered or learned something new about ourselves, and not just people that know us, people in completely different parts of the world. We get those little things, and it's a slow start. The future is uncertain. We don't know. Like, are we going to be able to keep this going and sustain it? You don't know. And you're just like, Lord, for this season, you've taken us, you've removed us from everything that we have known. For me personally, I've felt that isolation, and I've learned the lesson that the Lord wants me to rely on Him first and foremost. Nothing I do is ever going to be good enough. Nothing I do to earn it. Yeah, like the basics is we can't do it on our own. That is the basics. Like the sooner we can get to that realization, the better. And that in this time He's going, you don't need anybody else around you. You need me. You need to learn to rely on me first. And I've never been so content at an uncertain future. Things that I used to fight, like really fight. And you have to have the plan, and you have to know, and you have to just say, Lord, the minute you feel that workmanship happening, and you knowing the Lord is working and preparing you for something, but also being happy with the fact that He might not be preparing you for something great. You might be Moses that just looks over the promised land, doesn't even get to enter it.
No, I have a theory on that.
Yeah.
But to tell you,
well, you can't leave it hanging there.
He's the only person to be buried by God.
Yeah, which was massive.
What you want to go into the promised land and then die in the promised land?
Exactly. No,
like in a normal grave?
Yeah.
Or let God take you up onto the mountain, and it's just like, what is that?
Totally. It's true. That is true. But you have to also just know that the Christian walk is not this beautiful, wonderful thing. The Christian walk is, there's going to be seasons of up and down.
Here's what I think is the most beautiful part of what you've uncovered there, okay? Is it's unknown, but you're content. And you're saying, but even if it's not this great thing, I don't know. Do you know what it is? It's not the thing that you can think. That's the most important part.
The verses that come alive of exceedingly abundantly above all you could think.
Which is just the next chapter.
Yeah. He works it out in a way, but it's the wait and the patience to know and to allow him to do the hard work.
So here's the faith story, okay? It's the work in you. It's the wobble. We're all going to remember the wobble, okay? Yeah. And then it is the work that God has prepared for you to do.
That's what
which is the unknown, unimaginable work. But here's the beautiful part of it. You have the peace and the contentment and the acceptance and the forgiveness and you're satisfied with just the Lord.
Yeah.
Outside of everything else. So you have that initially. Then he gives you fruit that is undeniable, that is so valuable in your life at that time, that you look back at the hardest thing you've ever done, and what do you say?
Yeah, thankful for it. Yeah.
It was worth it. I'm so glad.
Yeah.
And then on top of that, you then have this unbelievable work that God does that you could never piece together or imagine.
Yeah.
That is like, what? How? I mean, it's a beautiful story.
It really is beautiful. My devotion, I keep going back to it. My devotion that I read the other morning. As Christians, we are thirsty, and we are thirsting because we know where the source is. We know. We know. So we don't go and drink from it because we just think knowing is good enough.
Knowing is not drinking.
Knowing is not drinking. And we wander around and we go, why am I not feeling purposeful? Why am I not feeling fulfilled? Why is the Lord not helping me in this area? Why didn't this come through for me? Why didn't the Lord come through for me on this? Why is my family struggling?
Drinking.
You're drinking from everything else but the source that you know is there, but you don't fill yourself with that source daily. Even moment by moment. And that's what Faith Story is there to point you towards. The source is not just there. As Christians, it's not just good enough to know he's there. It's not about knowing. It's about drinking from the source. And that's where you're going to experience the fruits and the satisfaction. And you're going to be quenched because you are going to be filled with purpose. And being filled with purpose is being filled with the Lord in your life all day, every single moment, in every single task. And that is what I pray for Faith Story.
So there's a couple of things. So remember, I'm your closest witness.
Yeah.
And I know we're wrapping up.
Yeah.
Okay. But the fruit, there are things that I know you are not comfortable with. One of those is being uncomfortable.
No.
Awkwardness. You don't do awkwardness.
No, I don't like awkwardness.
You don't like silence. You don't like the stillness.
Yeah.
But
oh, wow. Yeah, the Lord has taught me that in this season.
But do you understand? Those are things, that's fruit. That's undeniable.
Sure.
And look at the value of that fruit.
How many of those layers have uncovered in that stillness?
And that's
things
what I'm
I would have
say.
never have gotten to. Yeah.
Do you know why you don't want to go drink from the source, even though you know?
Yeah.
Because of those things.
Yeah. But then the feeling of being fulfilled and satisfied by the source.
Of course.
And encouraged and peace. Contentment, even though you have no idea, it's trust.
It's much better.
Where you're very happy to say, Lord, because you get over feeling broken. Like that's just the personal journey of this, where you're like, okay, Lord,
I'm broken enough now.
Yeah, is it done now? But then that layer unpacks and you go, okay, Lord, I'm broken. That's fine. If I need to be broken for a little bit more, that's okay.
Yeah.
Like I'm happy with being broken. Like you can get to the point where you can say that because you're like, if this is where you need me, this is where the work needs to be done. Do you know what? The more you do it, it's like practice. The more you do it, you're not afraid to go there.
That's so beautiful.
I was so afraid to go there initially, and which is why I used to fight it so badly. And when I got to the point of...
So glad you said that.
Yeah.
Sorry, do you know why? I'm so glad you said you're not afraid to go there because I was thinking the more you do it, the easier it becomes. No, it's not easy.
Yeah, it's fear. You have to.
It's not that it's less uncomfortable. It's still uncomfortable.
Yeah.
But you're not afraid.
You lose the fear of it.
That's
where you're trying to dodge and dive and avoid it because you're fearful.
Yeah.
So that that has been the heart behind Faith Story. And like I say, we still don't have the answers moving forward of how this exactly looks. But there's a lot of ideas for Faith Story, content that we can really put a lot of focus on, very much the family and relationships. And again, not bringing the answers, but just shining light and saying, how is this area of your parenting? How is this area of your relationships? How is the Lord really molding you day by day in your life? Because we can't compartmentalize our faith,
it needs to be the
our
whole
life,
of you.
our work. And we do that well. Why do we do it? To cope.
Yeah.
It's too much. It becomes overwhelming if we look at, this I can give my time for there. That it's like a checklist. That's how we've learned to cope, because we've filled our lives with so many things. And we just saying, look at what you could possibly say no to. What do you need to remove? Is this really important? What is the end goal? Why do you need to be pushing hard for this? Is there an outcome that you're specifically pushing for?
Well, and
has the Lord led you in
cost.
that? And yes, what is the cost of this? Is
Who's
there fruit?
paying the price here?
Is there fruit? Is this leaving you feeling sapped and dry and broken? Or could you be putting that energy that you're spending into something that it's going to be hard work, but the end fruit is going to be absolutely amazing.
And just, it's not that we're going to get this right all the time. We're trying to balance the authority and the responsibility. So it is trying to utilize the existing circles, the accountability that's already present in your life,
so much.
that you should be accountable to. Don't make yourself accountable to the church or to the minister or to the guy on the screen. Because you're not. You're fooling yourself. You're not accountable to me.
But your wife that knows where the work needs to happen.
And your children and your close friends and your colleagues. And that's
Let them see that change in you.
And that is
what
so
the Lord
powerful
wants.
and beautiful. And that's what we want to start looking at. How do we allow those aspects so that we can have Faith Story that has content, but then that also has community and accountability. How do you build those things in? So that's where we're going with Faith Story. So thank you for sharing some of the heart behind it, Jess.
Thank you. I know it was long, but for those that have made it to the end
well done.
Of the heart, but really it is just like a conversation, and trust me, our parking lot conversations are as long.
I want to say this is like 15%.
Very much. It's tough to like tuck in all of those years into one little bit. But
those are important milestones and important aspects.
Also for those that have been our family for many, many, many years, a little update on how we're doing in Plet. What a beautiful little town. It's really just so amazing. And our girls are doing
super well,
really well. For the first time as well, they're experiencing like that feeling where they are doing things outside of us being able to have our eye over them and watch over them, and that they're learning and they're growing just as much. And we also are being a little bit more intentional about exposing them to a few little things that are uncomfortable, because it starts with letting them test the waters and find these things out, because that's how you're molding their thinking. And it's a really important part.
And again, so fruit is really beautiful for us to have the time with them. And I think the Lord also knew we needed a place like Plet to be able to go through some of the brokenness and get to the levels. And that's just the honest truth.
It is the honest truth.
It's not just because it's a beautiful little town.
No.
It's the fact that we are isolated. You can walk in town, nobody knows you. Yes, we might walk and we have those expectant faces of like, please can I know you? But they don't, which brings a whole different level of us being able to just go to
but also learning new skills, like to connect with people and to really share. Because now we've always been so used to sharing. You are the minister, so you share. Now you walk into someone, you're not a minister. You don't have a church. You're in ministry, but that's not what you approach the person with.
You don't have an immediate platform.
No, not at all. And it's just organic, authentic sharing from a really...
And seeing what the doors are that the
place.
Lord opens and being very grateful for the journey. So we need to wrap up, but just to say thank you for watching, and especially for those who have been supporting. So like the encouragement that we receive from you and the support that we have received, it is very, very appreciated, because I don't think that the individuals would know just to the degree of how much you are on the journey with us. And that is just the work that the Lord is doing. So we will remember forever.
Yeah.
Like it'll be, these are the people that were with us.
Well, it's literally documented because it's all online.
That's right. So,
Yeah.
and that's just a beautiful part of the story. So thank you, and just really want to encourage you to let the Lord continue writing your faith story. And here it is. Don't be afraid. Beautiful.
Amen.
Amen.